on my mind.
Somebody in a parachute has just landed on the edge of the ring. Holyfield bit by a dirty Mike Tyson. Fury has managed to get up.
Hello and welcome back to episode 9 of the ID Boxing Podcast with me, your host, Rob Tebbert. As always, just like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, I am joined by our usual twosome, Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clark, as we review a packed weekend of boxing.
Isn't this a thruple?
A thruple, yes. Which one's David Hay? Anyway, how are you, Barry? Packed weekend of boxing.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? Good for a Welsh boxer. Good for a Welsh boxing fan. Yeah, it was brilliant. It was a really good night in Cardiff, to be fair. Only you turned up.
I was wondering how long it would take to
He
get
was
there.
working, apparently, and you would, well, having a pyjama party with yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I was saying this before we got going. I stayed in the same seat from 5 o'clock on Saturday night till 11 o'clock Sunday morning.
You say it like we're meant to be shocked.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, did you really?
Yeah. You'd never guess by the look of me the peak physical condition that I'm in. Anyway, Andy, how about you? How was your weekend?
It was really good. I covered the Polish card for Sky, which was quite fun.
It was fun, wasn't it?
A lot of early finishes, including the main event where Babic got cleaned out in a round by Rozanski. I mean, it delivered really what we thought it would, but certainly not what Babic thought it would. And I caught the end of Cordina Rakhimov from about round 4 onwards. Caught up with the first part of it yesterday, and I mean, that was fantastic. It was an absolutely brilliant fight. And then, yeah, ploughed on into the early hours for Davis-Garcia. First time that I've stayed up for a while, because what I started doing was setting my alarm and getting up for main events, but I just stayed up for the whole card and I actually found it quite easy. You know, I'd really enjoyed it. I thought the undercard was decent, and I like that Showtime team as well. I find them easy to listen to and enjoyable to listen to as well. So that helped. And yeah, off to bed about 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it was a pretty late one. What did you do, Barry? Are you a stayer-upper or are you a sleeper? What do you do? Set the alarm?
No, I went to bed and watched it at 7 on my own. I was in a hotel. I was doing a podcast for BBC. You available on all your podcast things out today, actually. But yeah, so I wanted to watch. Yeah, so I didn't want to be knackered and have to talk about it. I mumble enough as it is. So yeah, I got up at 7. Didn't see anybody. But then Steve Bunce phoned me and said, I can't get internet, so I can't watch it. He was panicking, so we had to take my iPad and go downstairs because he won't spend any money. And then we watched it together, hand in hand, over breakfast. Yeah, but trying to avoid people. So we hid in the corner because last thing we would go, whoa, did you see the Garcia? Oh, he was brilliant money, Garcia. Yeah. You go, or Davis, I should say. I've got those names mixed up all week. I have to tell you that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was really particularly talking about how well Ryan Garcia did, but we'll come on to that.
He looked good though. He
looked handsome and he looked beautiful.
He is unbelievably handsome, like crazily handsome. Like, I don't fancy men, but if I did, he'd be the one.
If you had to, he'd be the one.
After Joe Cordina, because I love him anyway. But yeah, he'd be the one. He's so pretty. He's just weird.
Yeah, weird indeed. Anyway, let's...
The Barry Jones thruple.
Exclusive.
Joe Cordina and Ryan Garcia.
Garcia.
Yeah, there we go.
Maybe the first time I was batter on the ring.
Anyway, let's move on. Andy, we're going to come to you first. We're going to start in Poland. You mentioned there about Alen the Savage Babic coming up short in his quest for the WBC Bridgerweight title against Lucas Rozanski. Kind of a crash bang wallop and the fight was over.
Yeah, I think he'll look back on it with a healthy dose of regret, Babic, because that fight was only ever going to go one way in terms of the style, because Rozanski, that is what he does. 25 rounds he boxed in his previous 14 fights, and he steps into the middle of the ring and he lets his hands go. He was a little bit more compact in the way that he did it on Saturday than I've seen him previously, but there's obviously some genuine power there. You could tell that when you watched his other fights, and he's dangerous. And to stop him doing that, a good level, a high level, good technical boxer, he can just thump in a good jab, throw a right hand, step off, can deal with him. But Babic isn't that guy, and he just seemed to get caught completely between two styles, or he didn't seem clear in his head as to how he was going to do it, because in the build-up to the fight, his new trainer, Anthony Wilson, was talking about how they wanted to get him boxing more. And in a few fights' time, maybe you can do that, but not on Saturday, because whatever it is that they've been working on wouldn't be nearly deeply enough ingrained to work at that point, because you in the white heat of a fight like that, what comes naturally is going to come to the surface, and we know what comes naturally with Babic, and he's pretty good at it, but he didn't do it, and all of a sudden the fight was over. I spoke to Andy Scott, and he said the Savage was just crushed afterwards, because I think he knew that he just never really, the way he went about it, he just didn't really give himself a chance, I don't think.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. Obviously, we had 3 different shows on last week, so we were kind of like running around everywhere, and I hadn't really listened to that many kind of interviews certainly from Babic and everybody. And then the first time I did was in the build-up to the actual fight, and when he was talking about getting behind the jab, and the trainer was talking about, we're going to box a bit more. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh dear.
No, but I mean, that is the way to beat someone like Rozanski.
Yeah.
But you've got to have been doing it for a long time. That's got to be, Barry talks a lot about things. You ingrain something in the gym so deeply that then becomes your instinct. But Babic's instinct is not that. Maybe if he worked on that in the gym for 5 years, then it might become that. But the age he is, it's never going to be that. So those straight shots, they are the way to beat someone like him. A straight punch will land before a wide punch. That's just geometry. But it wasn't going to work.
I didn't know what that means.
It just wasn't going to work.
Barry, over to you. Were you surprised to see Sugar Ray Babic out there on
Sugar
Saturday
Ray
night?
The thing, and Andy, everything Andy said is spot on. The main reason that won't work is because he has no fundamentals. So that's the first thing. He hasn't learned anything except for raw aggression. He knows he can hold his hands up and he can throw punches, of course, but so can theoretically anybody. But he's very, very tough man. He's strong, and he has that mindset to push through when he's hurt and get you. So you almost can't work with that now at his age and where he is now. You just gotta get him fit, I think. But but he's up against a guy who was probably physically stronger than him. And again, as Andy said, because the guy was coming in compact and low, it was hard for Babic to swing away. He was swinging away and over the top of his head half the time. And Rozanski just got on him really quick. Got to his chest really early. He knew that much, didn't he? If I just get on his chest, he can't hit me, and I can just work away inside. So Babic was always an accident waiting to happen. That's the truth. He's a really enjoyable character to be around, and you almost want him to win for his personality alone, because he's fun. But it's you step up a level. It's just not. I know it's a world title, but it's not called this world level really. You step up a level, and sometimes all those things you can't do are massively highlighted, and really highlighted, and it was. His lack of knowing how to box was always going to expose him at some point, and that was it. Unfortunately, there's no shame in that. You are what you are, but. Yeah.
I think his regret will be that on Saturday he wasn't what he is.
Yeah,
but he wasn't allowed to. I don't think he could have
done
it.
He was hurt in the first 10 seconds.
Yeah,
he got buzzed straight away.
The guy just rushed him, so he's always going to have that. He said, like, who hits you first? Who hits first? It becomes almost like a street fight with him. So whoever gets hit first, has the big chance of winning, and that's that. Especially when a guy who can punch, but he's a guy who can punch neater. That's why, and that's what was always going to happen to him at some point, unfortunately. And it's just a shame he never got over the line and won this brand new Bridgerweight title, which we're all over the moon about.
Indeed. Where does Babic go next? Cruiserweight, down to cruiserweight, and maybe take a few kind of low key fights. If he's gonna, I don't know whether or not it was specific to the Rozanski fight, or if he's gonna, try and, with all due respect, sort of learn to box and try and ingrain those fundamentals. Does he go down and drop down a level as well?
I don't think he can learn. No, I don't think. I think all you get him is try and get him tighter. defensively tighter. Trying to tuck his chin in. I don't think you can teach all of them to the world beyond the jab and start moving around the target. That's not going to happen, because you need to build that intelligence up, as Andy was like saying. You build it up over time. You have to ingrain it into somebody, but you got to do that as a kid. And even that, sometimes you go back to your natural instinct of fight or flight anyway. And no one knows how you're going to respond until you're in that situation. And by the way, that situation, you can respond differently to that situation at a different time in your life. So he's not going to learn those certain things that other boxers can do who've done it through the amateur. So you just got to get him tucking up tight as possible. But he could hand move his head more. He could bend his legs a little bit better. And I think you could do that slowly, make him a little bit more of a smaller target to hit, because he was upright and he has a massive head. So it makes it harder. It makes him a bigger target to hit. He does stand up tall, especially when Rozanski, whatever. He come in low, and then that makes you go tall, and that makes you easier target to hit. So if you throw over the top, then you know you've got a free shot. So he can do things like that. Widening his stance makes him a little bit of a small target and make him more compact. But yeah, and where he goes, I don't know, because I was never quite sure where he was going. It was just fun to watch, wasn't it?
No, that's it. It is a tricky one for him, because there's definitely a place for him. And like I say, he's great fun and he's good to watch. But I don't really. That's a good question. Where does he go now? Because I think that was a crushing disappointment for him on Saturday. Because whatever we think about the WBC Bridgerweight title, he was desperate to win it. And then I think I said last week, you can maybe do something in Croatia with him, then take him there as a world champion and make a big fuss of him, like the Poles did with Rozanski. That was his hometown, and they put on a really good event, and you could have done that with Babic, but he's in a tricky spot now.
But he's a fun fighter. Yeah. So you can use him, but that's the word. Use him. That's the worry. He becomes an opponent he becomes a fun opponent, especially if he stays at that weight against guys coming up who have a bit more talent and a bit more spite, and you think, he's hittable with a bit more weight on the shots as well. That might be more of an impact for him. I don't know. I'm not saying he's chinny, because by the way, he was on his feet. He was all over the place and he was in trouble. And but he protested, bless him. God, I think he's a really tough man. But it was the right call.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so so he's always going to have a place for him. He's a fun fighter. But then you start thinking about, does he end up like in the Chisora situation where he's getting well paid, but getting well paid to get beat up? Even though he's competitive in those fights when he's getting beat up, that might be the case. But it's his choice, but did we ever think he was going to be a champion of the world?
No, I don't think.
No, that's
we
the
didn't.
real truth
we
of
didn't.
it.
No, that's it. I think anyone who's seen him, you always knew what he was. I just think he needs to fight cruiserweight, because when he was on Sky the first time around, I said to him a couple of times, like, why look at your weights, like you should be fighting at cruiserweight, and he got a bit upset with me about it at one point. But I think that is what he should be doing, because he was 210. Weighing in for this one, and he would have been 210 on the night, because he's a stone inside the limit, and he looks in great nick. So he can be 210 on the night at cruiserweight. He's got to just make 200 pounds at the weigh-in, which you would imagine he can probably do. I just don't think there's any argument against it now. I know heavyweight, bridgerweight, whatever is where the money is, but he's not going to be a world champion. He's not going to be in those big money heavyweight fights. That's not going to happen.
And they're very
so put yourself
where
you've got the best chance.
And also, there's a bigger pool at cruiserweights, obviously.
Yeah.
And that size and strength that he has, and that will to win, let's be honest, makes him a fun fighter, makes him a vulnerable fighter, but also makes him a dangerous fighter at a certain level. I think.
Exactly.
We've already seen that, of course, but I think he'd be more effective at cruiserweight. So he's got a future, but where his future is, we have to put some reality to it. It was never going to be world level in our eyes, in his eyes, and understandably, every boxer thinks they're going to be the champion of the world, and why not think that? You should think that. But it's always horrible for a fighter and we all have it, when reality hits home. Some ignore it, and it doesn't mean it's not the end of his career. He got beat, but I mean, there's so much work to do to compete at world level that I don't think he can do that work. That's the bottom line. But he's still got a future in the sport.
Okay.
So I said the same thing again?
Yeah, it's
5
all right,
or 6 times?
No, 6 is enough. Right, before we move on, the final one from this weekend in Poland, we saw the return of a certain Martin Bakole, made pretty easy work of Igor Shevadzutskiy in 3 rounds. Andy, going to come to you first. As somebody who had seen Shevadzutskiy in the past, I think we kind of expected maybe a little bit more resistance, but I don't think we necessarily expected Bakole to go about things in such dominant fashion.
I wasn't that surprised with how Bakole did it. He had more of a look in the first round, as you always should. But Shevadzutskiy is a big lad. Was a decent amateur actually, but he is what he is. You look at him for 10 seconds and you know what he is. He high guard, plods forward, and looks to just use that size. He's a fairly kind of slow, mechanical puncher. Bakole was always going to be much quicker than him, and the way to stop him was to do it the way he did it, which was just to keep those hands moving. A lot of them are punches that don't have too much on them, but he varies up the weight of punch. He finds good angles. And that's what he's kind of made his MO now, Bakole, over the last few fights. And I thought he boxed really well. And Big Igor just looked a bit kind of flummoxed and bewildered by the whole thing, to be honest. And he got put down pretty hard by a left hand, which, again, there didn't seem to be loads on it, but there was definitely enough because he's 20 stone, Shevadzutskiy. So if you put him on the canvas, then you've got to have landed something. And at the end, he was just getting hit so much that the referee had no choice but to dive in there. And I think there's real possibilities for Bakole. One thing that's been interesting the last few weeks is he's all of a sudden started to talk, because he's never really done that before. Billy Nelson's done it all for him, and he's banged that drum relentlessly. But this time, this fight week, he actually started to open his mouth and call out fighters and say this and say that and reveal stories from sparring, breaking that omerta. And he needed to do it because it's a nice idea that your boxing can do the talking, but in reality, you do actually need to do some talking. The problem he's got is that if you're above him in the rankings, there's just no reason why you would want to fight him, because he doesn't bring, although he's with Boxer now, he doesn't bring all that much to the table. So I think Matt said it on Saturday, he's in danger of, being president of the Who Needs Him club. Not because anyone would be scared. No one's scared, but it's just, do you know what I mean? There's nothing in it for you, is there, to fight Bakole?
He's a dangerous fight with no rewards. There's no. You get well done, a good win. That's it. Don't step up the level. And he doesn't generate all the heavyweights above him are all greedy, aren't they? Because they're all in big money. So they're not looking at Bakole going, oh, that's a good fight. They're going, what fight can be pay-per-view? What fight can I get the most money? That's all it is now. I don't think they even care about world titles anyway, to be fair anymore. So they're looking, where can I generate the most money now? The ones above him. So that's the worst earner they can get, fighting him for now, because he might be involved in a pay-per-view, but he'll never be the pay-per-view star. Bakole, never ever. By the way, I don't care who he's with.
No, he needs to force his way into mandatory, probably, doesn't he?
It's impossible.
Which even that is even that is kind of forcing your way into mandatory. Still, you need political clout to be able to get a final eliminator and trying to get up there.
Dillian was there on Saturday, and he was kind of chasing Dillian around backstage, and they had a bit of back and forth. But there's no reason why you would fight Bakole if you're Dillian White. No. Dillian puts himself at a certain level in terms of his ability, but also in terms of his worth, and he's not going to fight Martin Bakole. Unless he's just got no other offers, but I think he will have other offers, probably.
But that offer won't be enough, will it? I don't think. I just can't see it. Unfortunately, that's the horrible. We shouldn't even be talking about money, really. We should talk about opportunities and who deserves their chance. But and he's a hard fighter to fight because he's busy, and even though he doesn't put a lot on the punches, he turns. So there's loads of weight in every shot, but he'll go, boom, boom. And
he's heavy now too. His last 3 fights, he's come in about 20 stone.
This week.
Yeah. Which was a change.
Speed in the shots. He touch. He don't. I hate that word touch because he's never touching. But he'll hit you without putting too much in the shots, and then he'll accelerate with one shot now and again. And
he's a proper handful, and
he never loads up, do he? So it means he can constantly work, and his feet are good, and he's fast, and he got good upper body movement. He needs to really have someone put it on him and see what he's like there when you got a big guy landing right hands on him or with work rate, and when someone's dictating the pace against him, whether he's got it in there. But apart from that, he's a big heavy lump who has good skills, fluid with his work, makes him dangerous.
It does indeed, and you kind of touched upon it there. The fact that he doesn't seem to put an awful lot into a lot of the shots, but they're all heavy. He's got a lot of variety as well. He punches in combinations. He's not just a kind of jab and grab or line you up for the right hand. He's got kind of all the shots in the book, really, Bakole.
And he slips down. So he slips down to the jab to the body, but like that's hard to do for a big fella. When you're boxing a small guy, but he can bend his legs. He is smooth with his work and quite athletic in many ways. He can spread his legs a little bit, slip down with the body, and then get back up and be nice. It keeps his shape quite well. His hand's never massively high, but he's always there or thereabouts, so he knows where he is. He's aware of what's coming back.
He brings something different. He's good to watch. I really enjoyed watching him the other night, and he was great against Joker, and nothing really happened for him off the back of that. I really hope something opens up for him. If it doesn't, I was talking to Macklin about this afterwards, and he said if it doesn't open up for him, and you'd imagine that it probably won't in terms of a big fight, then what you can do, you need to sit him down and talk to him about the financial side of it. But what you can do is just get him boxing as often as you possibly can, so that it's kind of every other week. It's me again. Anyone fancy it? Still no. Okay, no one. You're all scared, are you? You got to go down that route. Because that's really the only other thing you can do.
Yeah, and I think they've done a really good job in the last, as you mentioned, like particularly the last couple of weeks. And it started kind of around. I feel like it started really around Usyk-Joshua too, sort of back in August when they were talking about stopping Usyk to the body and things like that. And then he did the Takam Joker fight as well, obviously after beating Joker.
Yeah.
And he talked a bit there. And I saw the.
He's got a great story,
He is, yeah.
He's a Congolese prince.
And he's
living in a small Scottish village. Yeah. His older brother's, Ilunga Makabu. It's great stuff. It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, and he can really fight. It's not just, but I had this conversation with one of our guys yesterday when we were talking about him, and it's like there are fights where you think, okay, the Michael Hunter rematch, and then you'll ask the question inevitably, okay, who puts that on and where?
There you go. Yeah, that's the problem.
Two names.
What does he want that fight? What does that fight do for him?
Hunter. I mean, Hunter's kind of another one who's out in the wilderness a little bit.
What did Bakole want to fight him for?
I mean, Bakole probably maybe want to fight him because obviously I had the first fight.
Yeah, but I mean, it does. But doesn't if he beats him, he gets that redemption. But I mean, it doesn't do nothing for his career. All it does is it's another risky fight for him stylistically. He's the Bakole. He's his own Bakole. What do I want to fight you for? You're a dangerous fight still. I might beat you, but you're a dangerous fight. I don't need you. Don't need you to fight you. And that's what they've been saying about Bakole. I think I could beat you. I'm pretty sure I can beat you. I think none of them are scared of him, but they're all like, why do I want to fight you for? Could you? What if? I don't need you. I'm so close to this. And that includes everyone. That includes them all. That's Joe Joyce. He's in the same position, was and possibly still is, as him. So what happens then? Those people have to fight each other to get ahead.
So the two names that I've plucked out, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. Carlos Takam. I think Carlos Takam's a good fight.
Takam or Parker?
Joseph Parker was the other one.
Yeah. They're kind of, if you can, could you want to get him a fight with someone it's gonna mean something? If he could do a better job on Parker than Joe Joyce did, and it's those kinds of things you're looking at, isn't it? To try and put pressure on, and that pressure, I mean, people have to respond to it. It needs to mean something, and then you're looking at the sanctioning bodies, really. He's right up there with the WBA. Yeah,
but he's behind a certain Deontay Wilder, who is worth this amount of money to the WBA compared to Bakole, which is just
that right there is the problem.
Exactly. And it's not, whether you think it's right or wrong, it's just the way things are.
It's the world we live in.
Yeah, and it's not new. It's always been the case in boxing. Barry, either one of those fights tickle your fancy?
Yeah, well, I think they're makeable fights, but I think, again, for Joseph Parker, if he loses against Bakole,
where does he go? I think he's boxing in Australia, isn't he? He's boxing with Vega Opalu, I think, or maybe one of those Australian guys.
Takam Bakole, they've both beaten Joker. I don't know how big a kind of sell Takam would be in Paris, but they've been over there recently. Boxer, you could maybe do something like that, because Bakole is, as you say, he's going to be on the undercard of any UK show. He's unless he manages to land an absolute monster fight, he's not going to be headlining a UK card. You wouldn't think.
There is no monster fight for him. That's the thing.
No, exactly.
There's no monster fight for him, is there?
No,
at all. Anyway, there's not like an up and coming heavyweight who's great and everyone thinks he's going to walk right through you yet.
No,
this is not. And the ones we have are not quite there yet. No, even the ones coming up like they're nowhere near this level yet. But even like Wardy and Fraser Clark and No, they're not going to want him, are they?
No.
I mean,
No.
I know the fighters will fight, but I mean,
No, he's in a tough
their
spot.
camp are going to go, what are we gonna
He's
put?
in a tough, frustrating spot, and I think the route that he probably will have to take is, just think about it sensibly and think, okay, well, I'm not gonna be able to demand this amount of money every time I fight, but let's just get me out fighting 4 or 5 times more this year. Get it to the point where it's almost a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, but you never know. You just keep.
No,
you just
that's
keep
it.
fight like I fight as often as you can for whatever money they're giving you. Keep going, and then you get yourself as far as close as you can to it, mandatory. And you never know. You might get that Ruiz call. Someone pulls out.
That's it. You look at what happened to Takam.
It's highly unlikely that anyone fails a drug test in boxing. But if they would, right, then he might be able to step in.
But
and
it's
they know
what,
this,
we're talking about Takam, and look what happened with him. Pulev was supposed to fight Joshua. He pulled out with a week to go. Then he's in.
Yeah.
And if you're right up there in some of the rankings, that could happen. You've got to keep the
sometimes
faith.
they got nowhere to go over there. No, well, we have to get him.
Yeah.
No choice.
Yeah, I think sorry to kind of go back on it. Yeah, Fega Opolu is the guy that they're trying to make a fight for down that. I think that's kind of, if you're Joseph Parker, I think that probably, there's 2 fights down there. There's Opolu, there's Dempsey McKean as well. I think they do good business in that part of the world. But I mean, he's on the back of that Jack Massey performance as well. He's kind of in the, I wouldn't say he's not in the who needs him club like Martin Bakole is, because there's still a name brand and a value attached to Joseph Parker, but he's kind of in a position whereby it's going to be difficult for Parker to get any fights as an A-side on the back of being stopped by Joe Joyce, that performance against Jack Massey. If that fight can be made, I think that's a fight that gives...
Yeah, that's where he is, Parker, now, and he's a realistic guy. Everybody, all professional athletes find it, it's difficult to accept your situation sometimes, but he's had a really good career. He will have made really good money. He seems like a sensible bloke to me. I don't think that he would have, spunked it all. So I think financially he's secure, which is a good position to be in. And now, then it comes down to what's your motivation for continuing? Because if it's not money, then what is it?
It's always money, mate.
But if it's only money, then that's not going to sustain you for that long, is it?
It's always money.
Yeah.
So,
but when you get to that point of your career where you've peaked and you're on the other way down, and you're on the way down the other side of the hill, whether you like it or not, or admit it or not, then it kind of only is money, and that's not going to last long, is it?
But even if it's not, because say Joseph Parker still has aspirations of being a world champion, which I'm sure he does. He's still thinking, even if he thinks, listen, you beat Bakole, that gets you the next, that's guaranteed going to get you the next shot of the world title. But we can only give you 6 figures, low 6 figures for it.
He's not going to do it.
No, and also
he's going to go no chance. Because this is my. But once you get paid a certain amount of money for the fight, you're going to go. That's my marker now.
Yeah, of course.
So I would imagine that he didn't get fortunes for relatively to what he's used to for the Massey fight. I wouldn't have thought.
No. Off the back of the stoppage loss to Joe Joyce. But again, it's like if you're Joseph Parker, you have that kind of, there is a value to your name. Okay, you've been stopped by Joe Joyce, but whatever.
You've been a former world champion.
Exactly.
Former.
You'd think, okay, well, if I'm
go.
in the top 15, I'm eligible for a voluntary anyway. Why do I need to fight Martin Bakole? Like, I can get a win against a Dempsey McKean or an Opolu, who are much easier fights in my opinion than a Martin Bakole fight. Barry, going to come to you as the person who lent Martin Bakole his shorts this weekend, and just tell me who you think who you would like to see next for Bakole.
Derek Chisora, yeah, get him in.
Well, that's a again, Chisora will want a lot of money, won't he?
Yeah,
and that's a horrible fight for Chisora.
Every fight's a horrible fight for Chisora, but he's an active fighter. He wants to fight, so that's I mean,
And does beating him get you closer to a world title if you're Bakole?
Well, Pulev might get Pulev getting a shot at the world title.
You fell for the fake Mike Coppinger tweet, didn't you?
but either way, Dillian White. No, that sort of fights now, which I think I think Bakole would be favoured in both of those. To be honest. I think Dillian White's not the fighter he once was.
That's the best fight for him, isn't it? It's
but
for the reasons outlined.
You can build a narrative, can you? Because that thing on the stairs. Someone put a brilliant tweet. I can't remember who it was. Put a brilliant tweet. And they go someone put the tweet out and said something like Bakole and Dillian White kept apart in a row or something like that, and someone said, by a piece of rope.
Yeah. That was it. That was good though. It was good to see Bakole. Like, Bakole wasn't taking any steps back. He was there and he was giving it.
He also wasn't taking any steps forward. I have to say that.
They would have had a plan there. They would have had a plan. Right, Dillian White's going to be here. Get the win, and then you need to go and find him. And that wasn't something that previously I ever could have imagined him doing.
So I think,
but maybe personality-wise, he's not quite what we thought.
Ultimately, when it boils down to it, it's what Boxer and Sky want to do with Bakole. They go, this might be our guy. I can't see how they would be that, because it's all about pay-per-view with a heavyweight. But every promoter wants a big heavyweight, because that brings in the money for the broadcaster, and that keeps them happy, and that gives them more work. So they're going to go, we need a flag bearer, which is always the heavyweight fighter. So they go, do we pay Dillian Whyte silly money to come over and fight him? Because ultimately, if you give them the right money, they'll fight anybody. But Dillian's going to want too much, and Bakole, even if he wins, and it's a great fight, and it goes on pay-per-view, because Dillian Whyte's a name, I don't know how well it does, but it'll do okay. Does Bakole against someone else do the same money? I think he constantly has to fight big names. So he can theoretically be a pay-per-view fighter all his career, as long as he's the B-side all the way through, even if he's winning and he's champion of the world. It's that. I just don't see him as a marketable fighter yet, because you need a fan base, and he's starting with no fan base.
A big heavyweight's so important for every promoter, isn't it? And that's like, boxers don't really, at that top end, they don't have one.
You can see why
Frank's got them all.
Yeah, you can see why he'd be tempted to go for a Bakole, because he's well ranked, he can clearly fight, but the big issue, and particularly in that division, is what he brings to the table. Just before we move on, because we do have a lot to get through, I'm just going to leave you with Barry. We're going to come to you for we mentioned Boxer and Ben Shalom, promoter of Martin Bakole. The obvious route, quoting an interview that he did here, the obvious route is the WBA, and we have Daniel Dubois about to be ordered to face Alexander Usyk for the world heavyweight title. That should go to purse bid soon. That leaves number 1 and number 2. Deontay Wilder against Martin Bakole. It has to happen. Do you reckon we could see Martin Bakole versus Deontay Wilder?
No. Oh, how? I mean, I'd love to see it. Like, I'm not saying he wouldn't deserve his shot if he has another fight. Like maybe compared to other heavyweights, maybe he does deserve the shot. But I mean, how's that going to happen? What's Wilder got? I think, again, we shouldn't be talking about the financials, because why do we care? But they are stumbling blocks, and massively, for those fights, for these big fights. So that's never going to happen, because who's going to pay for that? Unless Saudi just go, we want to see Deontay Wilder in Saudi fight somebody. It doesn't matter who it is, and he's the one. That's good. He's the guy who's going to come at him and have a go. And I mean that when you go at somebody and have a go, that means you're able to be hit, and it'd be a good fight to watch. Actually, it would be really. It would be a good fight. Really good fight.
There's just no prospect of it happening.
I was going to say, you're our resident Saudi correspondent.
There's just no prospect of it happening, unfortunately, because the business side of boxing it's not like other sports, as we always say, where they devise a fixture list and you play who you play. You enter a tournament, there's a draw, and then there's another one next week. And the business side of it makes it absolutely unique, and it's utterly integral to what actually happens.
Certainly in that Division 1 and the other.
Yeah, and Deontay Wilder, it's definitely going to go and box in Saudi, but for the Saudis, it definitely does matter who it's against.
100%.
And they want him to fight Joshua. It's no secret, is it? And Wilder was there a few weeks ago at the end of February, and on paper, Usyk should fight Dubois, and then maybe you'd have a final eliminator between numbers 1 and 2. On paper, in theory, that makes sense, but in practice, it's never going to happen.
Theory and boxing do not.
And that's not being cynical or world weary or kind of.
And also, you said that on
some annoying old tit. It's just.
Yeah.
That's just.
It's just the way things work,
and
that's how they've always worked.
But on paper, and you're right. On paper, Usyk should fight Dubois. That just sounds madness in itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To be honest, but you're right. That's what it is, because he's number 1. But it's like, come on, that's not a fight where you don't have. What's the betting odds going to be on that fight? You can't make a penny on Usyk, can you?
You can on Bet365. Check out Bet365. As always, big up Bet365. We're going to move on. Billy Nelson, if you want to speak to Andy Clark, who'll put in a good word with the Saudis for you, we could be seeing Deontay Wilder versus Martin Bakole sometime over there. Thanks, Billy. Anyway, moving on. We're going to come to our resident currently Welsh, but former super featherweight champion of the world. Former Welsh super featherweight champion of the world.
Almost as long as I lived in Wales, almost.
Barry, we kind of expected a good fight this past weekend, but I don't think anybody could have foreseen just what we were treated to.
I was worried that if it was the fight that we saw, that Joe wouldn't get over the line. I thought that's the last thing he wants to do. But can I just say before all that, in the early rounds, you seen pivot. I was like, I read a little bit, I gotta be honest.
He was doing like pivoting off to the side and throwing the right hand.
Well, what he was doing, he slowed. He took it. He just didn't rush his work, and he took that big step with the front foot on the. Make sure he goes foot on the outside. Then he pivoted. So he didn't care about the kid seeing it, because they don't usually see it. He went step, turn, put himself in a good position every time. Didn't stick with it, unfortunately, but he toughed it out, Joe. And well, he didn't stick with it because he hurt him and dropped him in the second round, and you thought, whoa, this is good. This is really good. But Rakhimov's tough, like unbelievably, like stupidly tough. I mean, worry about his health tough, actually, to be fair. Like some of the shots he got caught with from Cordina coming forward, some of those uppercuts as well were horrible. Like, don't know what it looked like on TV, but ringside you could see his head going bam, bam, bam. But then he'd just come on, and he's like a proper sort of ex-Eastern European sort of type fighter, where no shot is like, very rare is one shot like boom, but every shot is solid. They punch right through the tag with every punch, and you could see Joe thinking, shit.
Yeah, he said, didn't he, after the fight?
This is not nice.
He said after the fight, the first round, he said he come out and he hit me to the stomach, and I thought, fucking hell.
Yeah.
Like,
but you know what? There was questions that we had no answers to, because he boxed at the world level, but he had a blowout in 2 rounds, in less than 2 rounds. But that he got hurt in the fifth round.
Fifth round, got hurt with a headshot.
Really hurt in the 5th round, and he had to hold on. He did the right things. He held on, tried to spin him around, tried to waste the clock, and recover this video. Hurt with a body shot a few times, and dug deep. So he can dig deep. We've seen that now, and I think it was the perfect fight for him in many ways. You don't want to see him in fights like that if you're a fan of Joe Cordina. But it was the fight that we needed to see him in, to show if he did have the minerals to dig down, to dig deep. I always thought he did, but thinking and seeing are 2 different things. Now you know, and his division as well, and the level he's at now, not all the fights are going to be Ogawa fights. That was a real world title fight. The Ogawa fight wasn't, because he just hit him with the shot of all shots. Now that's a fight at this level. They're more likely to be like that than they are Ogawa. And it was good to see that he can dig deep, that he can bite down on the gum shoulder, that he can, when he's hitting a guy with great shots and you've hurt him, he doesn't go anywhere. And you have to find another way around. And find the energy, because those middle rounds, he was struggling. Actually, Ogawa did better with one eye. Rakhimov did better with one eye than he did with 2 eyes. Like, he was running on fumes, Ogawa. Ogawa he's still sleeping. Rakhimov was running on fumes after 5 rounds. Oh, he kept going. The engine on that man. I mean,
amazing.
Just to go through the most continuously, because he couldn't see. And then when he got the eye done, the following round, Joe was pinging him in right hands for fun, and I thought this is going to be finished in a round and a half. Like the eye's just going to blow up, and the guy's going to knock him out. He's not seeing him. Then all of a sudden, he just kept fighting back, and energy of Joe just went boomf. Like, you've seen the energy grow. Actually, he was tiring before that fight, Joe, and a little bit, and then when he seen the eye. He was cut first of all, wasn't he, above the eye? And then when you seen the eye start to swell up, and it was like really quick, wasn't it? He went in the corner with a cut, come back with one eye. It was like, what did he do in the corner? I don't know what he did. Poked him in the eye or something. And then, but like when Joe seen that, you see the energy fill back up in him all of a sudden. And Rakhimov, was as grey as he was at the weigh-in at that point. But the man just kept throwing punches. I couldn't believe it. The engine on him, like, it was quantity over quality throughout every round. But the quality of Cordina's work far outdid any of the quantity of Rakhimov. There were rounds. It was a close fight. It was a close fight. And the knockdown, though not decisive, made it conclusive for Joe in a close fight, if that makes any sense. But it was a great fight. It was a great watch. Every round you were like, ooh, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, it was full of little shifts in momentum, like big drastic ones, obviously, like we saw with the knockdown, and then when Cordina was hurt in the 5th round, but even just like little subtle ones as well, where you could sort of see Cordina kind of trying to grab a breather and go for a walk, and then Rakhimov would come straight at him, and then all of a sudden he would have the impetus behind him.
He'd sit on the ropes, Joe. I think he was waiting for Rakhimov to stop, to rally. We want, like, sometimes you're on the ropes and you're tired and you think, well, as long as I'm blocking, Joe always keeps his shape really well, and that's a real plus, especially at this level. I think I'm looking for the gap to fire back, but Rakhimov don't always give you the gaps, and he does take a little, not massively, but a little slight step to the side, not as much as he has previously, and that just makes it and you can't really see it until you really watch it. That just makes it a little more. Kazagi did it, by the way. I got pivoting Kazagi in. I mean, but I'm not talking about as a Rakhimov. He didn't box like Rakhimov. I mean, Joe would do like little minutes around the clock movements. I don't think he knew he was doing it, so he would rally these like he should throw loads of punches, and they couldn't fire back because even though he's in front of you, he's slightly there, only ever so slightly. I think I've said this before, and you think it's easy to fire back, but that little slight turn in your body, you're worried you're going to square yourself up, but you're worried that you've got to throw across your body, or you've got to throw out a little bit. They leave gaps, and when you're vulnerable on the ropes being like plastered with shots, whether they're heavy or not, you're aware that you don't want to get caught. Once you let your hands go, you're able to get hit. So Rakhimov sort of does that a little bit without not as good. And that's where Joe's like, you think, oh, he's in trouble here because he wanted to fire back, and think, I can't. Then he'd find a way, he'd come close and he'd turn him. Quite often he turned him quite well. But ultimately, he had to show the things he hadn't shown before. No bottle, courage, no fitness, real fitness, not fitness in a fast, hard 12 or 10 round fight where you're winning the fight. You just got to keep your concentration, which is another thing, by the way. The concentration is what drains your energy, and he kept that all through the fight. But this was a fight where it wasn't just, I got to be fit and to throw punches. I'm taking shots. I'm going to have to take shots. I know I'm going to have to. And that tires you out. And not panicking under the pressure. All those things that we'd never seen before. He came through in flying colours. It was and the atmosphere was amazing, by the way.
Brilliant performance. Yeah, as you said, they was pretty much in the trenches from the get-go. Andy, going to come to you on the scoring of the fight. How did you see the fight? And most notably, I think the one of the biggest kind of causes of post-fight consternation is the 116-111 for Shavkat Rakhimov. Yeah,
so that translates to 9 rounds to 3, doesn't it? With the knockdown. So I picked it up in the fourth. I was watching it on my phone after I'd finished what I was doing, but I've watched it in its entirety, and I felt like I thought Cordina won. I had the same score as you two, 115-112. I felt like some of the rounds in the second half, not that he made them closer than they needed to be, but Rakhimov made them really close through that sheer desire and work rate you were talking about, because Cordina would get off with some really good, clean punches and then kind of tuck up within range almost, and Rakhimov's just straight on you, throwing proper hard shots, 5 or 6 of them, and then you've got that decision to make if you're a judge as to who has won that round. For me, we don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much, but for me, it's not rocket science. You're looking for who punches the other more effectively, who lands the more effective, clean punches. That's what it's about. This volume thing, quantity over quality, it's about quality. It's as simple as that. And I felt that Cordina...
To a degree, though, mate. It is about quality. You're right. And the way you put it across was perfect, actually. And I haven't quite heard it quite in those words. And I'll cherish those words forever.
We'll hear them on the next broadcast.
But I know, but I mean, it is because
you can be totally outworked. Like I say, no 3 good shots in a round doesn't outweigh a guy who outworks you for 2.5 minutes. I don't think.
No, because also it's not like this is professional boxing. Obviously, it's not amateur boxing where you are really looking for clean scoring shots delivered with a knuckle part of the glove on the scoring area. That professional boxing.
That's exactly what you're looking for, by the way, though.
Yeah, but you can clobber me around, half getting through with punches and gloves canning into my head and all the rest of it, and that counts.
Yeah.
So it is a difficult balance.
I'm sort of arguing with you, though I agree with you. Just for the sake of it, but you are right. Ultimately, it is the quality of the shot. If I hit you with 10 like fast shots, you hit me with 2 really good quality punches in that exchange, especially in that exchange as well, which is quite what it was. Like Joe would land with 2 good shots, or Rakhimov would just let his hands go, and then Joe would go bam bam, and then you sort of think, well,
and you've got to look at the effect they have, obviously, because I've always thought it's like you've got to keep, you've got like a computer game, you've got a fight game on the computer, and at the start of whatever the round or the fight, both participants have got a full energy bar, right? And you deplete their energy bar by hitting the other person, and you take a big chunk off it if you hit them clean and really hard, and you take a little chip of it if you don't hit them that hard or you don't hit them that clean. And at the end of the round, whoever's got the fullest bar still wins. But making that calculation is quite complicated. It's quite difficult, but I felt that Cordina did win those rounds. Maybe not all of them, but I felt he did win those rounds, and that's why he won the fight. The 116-111, you're basically giving someone rounds for walking forward. That's what you're doing. And you have plenty of judges who do that. I could name a few. I won't. But you see those cards and you know they give you rounds literally for walking forwards. And that's bullshit. I mean, that is absolute
it's
bullshit.
It's stylistically biased.
Yeah.
As is some of the things you were saying. No, but I mean, no, because I do agree with a lot of what you're saying. But it becomes a point where if you can punch harder, then it doesn't become a fair sport. Then it's because sometimes the thing about boxing is different styles. It's a sport for everyone theoretically, because whether you can punch or whether you can punch, or whether you can punch but you can't box, then you've got a chance because you can hurt the guy, knock him out. If you can't punch but you can box beautifully, you can stand this guy on his head. But then if it's all about how the effect the punches have solely, then so I can
no,
say,
but it's cumulative though, isn't it?
Yeah,
so you can hit me with 20 like not so hard shots, and that takes this much off my to persist with the analogy. That takes that much off my energy bar. I hit you with 3 solid ones. That doesn't mean that'll take more than your 20. It's. That you have to weigh it up. You have to just in your head. You have to decide.
But the word you said, effectiveness, I think, of the shot, whether it hurts you or not. If it's an effective scoring shot and it's clear to see, and I think with Rakhimov, his work rate was tremendous, but not everything's hitting clean. And Joe, everything that Joe threw, almost everything was through, was a clean, effective shot. And so, like, I'm being a bit of a dickhead because I totally agree with you. But
it's complicated. It is complicated. I'm not saying it's not an easy thing to work out. I don't think the formula is complicated, but making the decision as to how you balance those scales. If you're a judge at ringside and you see it once and you've got to write down your score as soon as the round has ended and you can't change it, that is difficult. And there are some fights where it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
And you get a load of close rounds, and as we've said plenty of times, you can have a 116, 112 one way or the other way or anything in between, and they're all fine.
But this wasn't that fight, was it?
But this wasn't that fight.
I felt like if you give all the close rounds to Rakhimov, you maybe, if you give all of the close rounds to him, can have it 114, 113 Rakhimov. If you give all the close rounds to him, but any wider than that, you're giving him rounds that you lost, I think, anyway. Right, Barry, going to come to you first. What next for Joe Cordina?
Bring him on, innit? What next? Let's build something in Cardiff. Like, I'm biased Welsh here, but I want to build something because when Karzagi had his success, we got fighters from that. Yeah. And and not just the ones we were already established. There were fighters that come from nowhere to come up. And I think that's important for Welsh boxing, British boxing, but certainly Welsh boxing, that Joe builds a home. Joe's not the youngest of fighters, but he's still got years left. So let's get him back in Cardiff. But who'd you get? He wants unification fights, and he wants to box in the City Stadium, Cardiff City Stadium, and I think that's a realistic option for him. Now I think he won't sell it out, I don't think, but he'll do pretty well with that. But who'd you get? That's the problem. It's a hard weight. No, I know the money fight has disappeared. Yeah, but also the fight that he couldn't win. Shakur, and that's no disrespect to Joe. I love Joe. I've been one most people, but like Shakur Stevenson's a generational talent. Joe's just a really special boxer, but there's a difference, and that's fine with that. But he's good enough to beat everyone in his weight division. I believe that right now. Like Navarrette's a great fight for him, but a naturally smaller guy who can punch, of course, a little bit.
He didn't look great in his last fight.
I don't think. No, I think
didn't
the weight
look great at all against Liam Wilson.
No, the weight factor and the weight, and Joe can box smart. He's shown he's tough as well, and he's shown he can adapt as well. And Navarrette's going to hit him harder than Rakhimov hits him. He's not going to hit him as often, I don't feel. But you're not going to get him over here. What about Foster? He's a good fighter, good boxer, fast mover. Lovely skills. That's a difficult fight, but you can get him over here. I think.
You have to pay him though. You'll have to pay him a lot of money. American champion, just won the belt. PBC.
But how marketable is he? I know he's a PBC fighter, but not every PBC fighter is a superstar.
No, sure. But they'll probably be thinking the similar thing for him. Like, let's build him over here now, rather than let's send him over to Cardiff.
They don't build fighters like we do here. We're building fighters with a view of, obviously, all the view of TV. I understand that, but also we build him as a view of he can sell out an arena. I don't think they do that over there so much. He's not selling an arena out wherever he goes. I don't disrespect. And I might be wrong. I'm just saying that because most of the time they don't sell arenas out until they're actually superstars in America. They don't build them like we do. They don't build a fan base. They build it differently. They go nationally straight away with their fighters, don't they? They don't go Like, actually, we've done that over the last few years, gone nationally with fighters. We haven't gone, like Bill and Smith's been an anomaly going back to Bournemouth. And that's what they all used to do. You build your fan base from home. They never did that with Cordina straight away. I always found that crazy. Like, they put him on big bills around. A fighter of his weight should have always been building from Cardiff, building little shows around it. But he's there now, he's got it. And I think so, get one of those there, I don't quite know, like, Oscar Valdez, you've got to go away to fight some of these guys.
And I think that's a fight worth travelling for because he's got big name brand and
it's Zelfa Barrett next, isn't it? Clear
potentially, and I don't mind the fight at all. I think after the fight's a decent fight.
Barrett's, and I'll probably go on about that in a minute. I would have thought after Barrett's performance on Saturday, then I think that's an interesting fight. I still make Joe a favourite, of course, and that's without being biased of a Welshman and Cardiff guy, and I know his family.
I think that's a really good fight.
I was at a wedding, I'm godson to his kid, and I clean his car once a week. No, but I still, it's an interesting fight. It's a more interesting fight now because I think Barrett was so intelligent on Saturday that he'll give Joe plenty of problems. So, and also they're both at the same network, and it'll go to Cardiff, guaranteed go to Cardiff.
One of the things that kind of I'm thinking in my head for the Cordina fight, I remember. Can
I say Cardiff again? I live over here. You know, the smelly side of the river. Then I don't get to say Cardiff often enough.
After the Agawa fight, I remember reading a piece that was by Dewey Powell, who spoke to Eddie Hearn, and Eddie said,
"I saw him in Cardiff."
Yeah, he was great. Shut up. So he did, and he said that Eddie basically said, "Look, we had to pay Agawa a load of money to come over here. We've done our bollocks. We've lost money. Blah blah blah." And then you saw the next fight was due to be in Abu Dhabi because, of course, you can make money there. It's slightly different here. So I'm interested to see where he goes next. Andy, who's your man for Joe Cordina next? Just looking through the kind of the top 15 with the IBF now. I mean, Kakachi, I think politics will probably prevent that happening. Zelfa Barrett, who we've mentioned. John O'Carroll, Chris Colbert, Sultan Zabek.
Barrett's he's the obvious one, and he's the best one as well because he's better known than the others, as you say.
Kakachi's a good fighter, isn't
Kakachi is a good fighter, and that would be a really good fight. John O'Carroll, same thing, kind of same problem. But yeah, I really like the Zelfa Barrett fight. I think Zelfa Barrett could beat Joe Cordina. You know, that's not impossible. So it's a proper fight.
Yeah, I like.
Did you hear what he just said there? Hey,
you would make Cordina favourite, of course. But he could. Zelf has shown us enough to suggest that if he gets it absolutely right and Joe gets it a little bit wrong, or a combination of those two things, he could win. So it's a good fight. It's a good fight for the UK, and as you say, getting back down in Cardiff, try and build that up as much as you possibly can, and then see what else might happen down the track, because we do have some featherweights who might come up, UK guys. We were talking about it before we started. They're coming towards the end. Warrington, I think, is coming towards the end. Maybe he would jump up.
And he won't fight for anything.
What would Lee Wood do if he doesn't get the rematch win against Lara?
You'd think Warrington as well, being a two-time IBF featherweight champion, if he moves up to super featherweight, he'd be really highly ranked with the IBF there. Just running through some of the champions now, because Cordina said afterwards that he wanted a unification and a Rolex. Eddie, pay him. Don't wait 6 months like you did for me with my 50 quid. Hector Garcia, I think you can maybe get him to come over. Obviously,
you could,
Box Gervonta Davis would have been well paid for that, but I think kind of outside of that, he's not really had the big paydays. Oshaki Foster, I'm not sure if he'll come over. I think
that's unlikely.
I think that's one that you probably have to travel for. Emmanuel Navarrete, I think you travel for that as well, because Navarrete is obviously boxed out there.
Yeah.
So those are the champions at super featherweight for him.
I can see Josh Warren, because I think Josh doesn't need to financially. No, that's great.
But there's a legacy option there. Two-weight world champion.
He doesn't need to, and he's big for the weight. I'm surprised he stayed a featherweight for so long, to be fair to him, and he's not fighting for nothing but a world title fight. No, they're trying to get him a fight now June the 10th. But I can't see who he fights, because who am I going to fight? I don't need to fight.
In London as well, it just doesn't...
Yeah, that's madness. But I mean, because everyone with the fight are going to fight someone good, which is a risk now, at his age and the stage of his career. He's not at the peak of his powers. So he's like, well, why do I need to fight someone now? If I get beaten with them on world level. So you roll the dice against... the thing with Cordina is so big for the weight, by the way. He's massive for the weight, Cordina, because Rakhimov's a big lump. He walked around like a ghost for most of the week, I think, because he's struggling to make the weight. But I mean, Cordina, that's Rakhimov, not Cordina. But Cordina was bigger than him in every sense. Like he's just so big for the weight. So I think that'd be a problem for Warrington. But still, yeah, that legacy thing, 2-weight world champion. I know when you get to that level, you lose a world title shot. You don't want to lose a 10-rounder.
Yeah.
An eliminator that just puts you out. It puts you out in the wind.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think Warrington could move up, do like with knowing that the Cordina fight could be made. He could do a 10-rounder against a kind of less than stellar opponent at super featherweight, and then you could potentially make that fight. You've got Cardiff versus Leeds as well, like good rivalry there.
A good rivalry, yeah.
Good rivalry,
really, real friendly rivalry. That isn't it?
Good
savage rivalry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Okay. We are going to move on and talk about the kind of the minor American show this past weekend. A certain Gervonta Davis stopped Ryan Garcia in 7 rounds in Las Vegas.
What wrong did I say? I know exactly what wrong I said.
Did you say 7?
6, 7, 8.
Did you say 6 or was it 7?
7,
No, I said
8.
points. I'm pretty sure I said points.
I thought I said 7. Andy said 7.
You
Did
said
you
8.
say Garcia third round?
Anyway.
Anyway, Andy, going to come to you because
I'll get on my phone now.
There was a week when we said 6, 7, 8, but I think it might have been
I-
Joyce Zhang and we were all wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I said
shit.
points. I said points for Davis. I got the identity of the winner right and got everything else completely wrong.
I'm so punch drunk. You're right. It was Jan, wasn't it?
I
I had
thought-
wrong. I had wrong 7 in one. I know I get wrong 7 all year.
Yeah. Doesn't matter who.
Andy, going to come to you first. Just I guess your initial thoughts on Davis's win.
Well, I thought he was terrific. I thought he was brilliant, really. He's a very, very good fighter. We already knew that, but he's just so clever and at ease with the situation and switched on and accurate and all the things that you need a fighter to be. He made Garcia pay dearly for any mistakes that he made. And by the end, the way that it finished, I felt sorry for Garcia, really, because I think he could have beaten that count. Physically, I didn't feel that body shot, and obviously there's endless debate about, well, if you haven't felt the body shot, then never mind all of that. The way he got up on 10, he could have got up on 8. But he didn't, because by that point, all the hope had left him. Davis had beaten the hope out of him, if not the kind of physical fight out of him, because he realised at that stage, I think, and it's a bleak place to be, I'd imagine, when you're on your knee there looking at the referee. He's realising, whatever I do, nothing is working. Whenever I really attack him and go for him, he's put me down twice. When I've tried to keep it tighter, I'm not getting much joy there. And I think that's what happened, basically. People love to throw around the quit word and be very, very kind of hardline about it, very damning about it. I'm not myself. I think he should have got up, probably, Garcia, and I think he might regret that in later years. He'll look back at it with a lot more experience than he's got now and feel like he probably should have done that, get back to the corner, because I don't think Davis was going to walk across the ring and knock him out cold. It would have been rough for the rest of that round. I think he'll look back on that and think like he probably should have done that. But I completely understand how it happened, because by that stage I just think he was utterly demoralised, basically, and he went there for one thing and one thing only, which was to win. All he knows is winning, and it was a massive, massive occasion, and he just wouldn't have had it in his head to think, I need to see this out, who knows what might happen on the cards, learn a few things for next time. The hope had drained out of him. You could almost see it happening, I thought, as he was down there on the knee. And Davis did that to him. And that takes him doing. It reminded me of Lomachenko against Nicholas Walters and Guillermo Rigondeaux, where basically the same thing happened. They retired rather than TKOs, but that was what happened, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Walters one was much worse.
Yeah.
He walked away because you couldn't hurt him. He walked away because he was getting beat.
Yeah.
Well, he won't get beat up. You can't get beat you.
Yeah.
But that's the thing.
It wasn't
But
the
that's
Durant
the thing,
thing
it
either.
wasn't-
It's the mental side.
Yeah,
of things,
the mental side
which
of it.
we're
That mental anguish was, and everybody talks about the physical pain of the body shot and all the rest of it. There are very, very few people in the world. You need to have done what he's done to have any idea of what that is actually like.
I've never been hurt with body shots.
But anyway, empathizing with a kind of physical sensation is an almost impossible thing to do, and describing it is almost impossible. But
and it's different every time, I would
exactly,
imagine. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
But the kind of mental aspect of it, the mental anguish, I think we can all get on board with that. We've all been in situations where you build something up, you want it so badly, you're so hopeful, you're so optimistic, and then it all comes crashing down around your ears. Not in front of thousands of people and on pay-per-view, which is the added aspect, but we all know what that feels like. We all do, don't we? So we can all kind of put ourselves in Garcia's shoes from that extent. But the added thing is, of course, that it happened in front of, if not the entire world, his entire world. So, yeah, that's a very long answer to your question. But it was a masterclass by Davis, really. Garcia, as it turns out, is not at that level, and he's got quite a lot of work to do. But I wasn't inclined to be too harsh on him for the way that it ended, because I just felt like I could understand how that happened.
Barry?
Yeah, I sort of agree with Andy mostly. He just resigned himself. I'm not going to win this fight. I'm done. He was hurt. You know he was hurt because it was that little delay. So you feel it. And what happens is you sort of like you when you get hit with a good shot, you go, and then when you try and breathe out, you go, there's nothing there. Like, and
it's so weird to watch that, you know, because like that's one of those things where
you know
what that's like, and I've got no idea what that's like, and it's so odd to see someone take I've seen it loads of times, but just to take a few steps and then all of a sudden,
it's either breathing. It's usually when you want to breathe out. Some quite ironically, but sometimes it might be when you want to breathe in. But it's a little gap because that when you first take a shot, you straight away. You do that straight away, and then you sort of go back because this is a bit painful, and then there's nothing there. You got to go.
Davis saw it, didn't he? You kind of look on the slow motion replay, and like even when everybody else, I didn't notice it until he took the couple of steps back. But even like you can see Davis as soon as it lands and brings it back, he opens his mouth because he knows he can see in that moment.
But when you see the last replay, because it looks like he just touches. It looks like he was like that, doesn't it? Southpaw stand. He just goes like this, just touches him. But when and it sort of was, it hit him on the top of the rib, didn't it? Like the floating rib, it looked like. But when you see the replay, the technique of Davis, you know, we talked about last week about the ring generalship was always going to be in his favour. He knows what to do. He's a more rounded boxer, but the way he turned from, like, he didn't want a lot in it. He didn't load up with it, but the twist on his hips when he threw the shot, he stays in. See, Dave, because he's coming in low. When you come in low, you get a better vision of the body. It opens up a little bit more. You get a clearer vision. So, because you can see through the guard when you're squared on with people like this, or you're above, you've got the gloves in your way, your vision, if you like, you can see, but you can't see as much. But when you're looking low and looking up, you've got all the much better vision. You can see inside those gloves. You can get a route. That's why he throws such a great uppercut, because he can see the route, and he punched through the guard. And that's what he did with the first knockdown, by the way. Come in low, go nice and low, go right in the middle, and threw the left hand over the top. Perfect shot. When Garcia is trying to throw. That's what he gets him every time. He sat around the edges, like we said this about last week. He sat around the peripheral's edges, waiting for Garcia to make a mistake. Took away the left hook straight away. He knew once I take away your left hook, you got nothing. And he said that he was saying that in the all the lead to the fight. All the kid's got is a good left hook. He doesn't do the fundamentals or whatever he was saying in his own words. Yeah. He doesn't do that. All he got is a good left hook. He also got a good right hand, but he's right. The left hook is his money shot. That's what gives him the confidence, and that's what takes your confidence away. He hits some people with the left hook, and they all panic. But he couldn't hit Garcia. He couldn't hit Davis with the left hook. Not at all. Because Davis does this all the time, and comes through the middle, comes in low, and it's hard. And so you got to adjust the height of your punch, and he couldn't do it. And he sits there patiently, Davis, waiting for you to overreach, make a mistake. And he fast feet, fast hands, get him through, and he comes right through the middle, comes in low. I wouldn't say schooled him, because he never boxes like that really. He always looked like the other fighter got a hope, but for not 1 second is he in any danger of actually, no, 1 second is he in any danger. That's just it, full stop.
We're going to have a look here at the stoppage. So this is the knockdown. So just comes in underneath there. And as he comes up, there's the shot.
So, you know, when you see it, first of all, with the first camera angle, you don't really see it exactly.
So he's in pain there. You can see him still wincing there. He's picked up the count. He knows what's happening here. And he's still grimacing, and that happens really, really quickly. So, you know, my reaction on the night and when I watched it back was that he could have got up, and he could have got up at 8 because he got up at 10. Maybe it was a bit more difficult for him than I thought, but I just felt like
he feels that twinge when he's trying to get up.
I just felt like at that point his world was coming crashing down round his ears, and it wasn't that physically he was incapable of it. It was just that the belief that he could win the fight had completely left him.
even then, even on the replay, you struggle to see it. Hopefully, we've got a slow-mo coming up.
No, there is another angle. I think I just got to watch it.
That was
At that
slightly
point,
different
when
angle.
he's looking at, I think he could have got up there. He has a little nod. He could have got up there. He could have got up. But like I say, I'm not going to kill him for that.
There it comes. So slow motion, just there.
Look at the turn of the body when he throws the shot. It's, the technique. He doesn't load up with this. It's a fluid shot. But the vision of Davis, see, he's the guy who just is in control when he's in the zone, in that danger zone where you can get hit. He's not a worry because he swoops in nice and low. He's inside your longer reach, and he's just looking for the target. And by the way, you've already seen he's allowed. You've either seen or allowed Garcia to throw punches before that in the previous rounds when Garcia looked like he was not winning any, but looked like he was relatively competitive, and just was happy to see what the mistakes he makes. So if he lifts his elbow up or what, like when he throws a shot, and he throws that shot when he's throwing. So he sort of he bets on himself. Yeah, I'll get that before you. And he did say about Garcia's speed. He said, "You're saying he's super fast. Not to me, he won't be."
That's what he said. He said, "I need to see it." He's like, people keep saying how fast he is, but I need to see it. I mean, it's a similar shot. The shot that knocked out Mario Barrios was a similar shot, like sort of left uppercut to the body, and you just see it kind of.
Just hit that top throat,
on it. And then and you can see, and that was another one, was a delayed reaction. Barrios just kind of takes a second. He goes, "Yeah, I'm all right. Oh, I'm fucked." Like, and then all of a sudden the fight's over. But just dialing it straight back. So going back to the start of the fight, as always, we do jump around. The first round of the fight, felt that Garcia kind of jumped back to the post-fight where he said, I was getting bored in there. So the first round, I kind of, I kept on the outside and we kept things nice and patient, but then I got bored. And then obviously we saw what happened in the second round. Barry, we always talk about it for every major fight, about how important the early exchanges are, setting your stall out and showing your opponent what you've got. I felt like I tweeted something before the fight where it was imperative, if Garcia was going to have any real chance of winning the fight, that he couldn't make mistakes early in the fight.
It was always important, first of all, for Davis to be a little bit busier than he normally is, I thought, with the guy with power of Garcia. But as I said last week, it was really important that Garcia had a good start, a good, real positive start, because you got a guy with much better ring generalship, much more knowledge, and technically better an all-round fighter. So you gotta make him panic. You gotta make him think that he can't stay on the outside. And he can, and if he comes forward, he gets hurt. So it was always important for Garcia to force Davis to attack him, like put pressure on him, to force him to jump in and be able to land with that left hook. So once Davis feels that, you're making Davis think, "Oh, I can't just jump in with the attacks now. I can't just, because what I'm working for is, if I get caught with one of those again, I'm done." And while he's second guessing himself, you're nicking his space. And doing what he does, what Garcia always does, he just put pressure on people. He just backs him into the corner physically, with the fear that they're going to get caught with that left hook or that fast right hand, but certainly that left hook, and he just couldn't do that. He didn't have a bad first round, actually.
No,
but it was quite tentative for both.
Yeah,
I understand, but when you've got two guys who can punch, no one's going to want to fully commit. But while Garcia is not worried and be aware of what Davis is doing, he's still thinking about, because he's had it all his own way relatively. To be honest, most of his career all his own way, except for that one knockdown, really. But so he's just thinking, I'll just impose myself a little bit. But Davis is looking at him. That's the difference. He knows what he's doing. He don't care. He knows what he can do. He's so comfortable what he can do. I don't think Garcia knows exactly how good he can be, but Davis knows how good he can be. And if that makes any sense. Yeah. So he's in there watching you, seeing what you do, where Garcia's thinking, what can I do? And that's the difference then. When those rounds, when nothing's happening, he's looking at your vulnerabilities and you're just trying to think, how can I get there? How can I get there? Which is not a bad thing. It's just what you should do. But when you're the talent of a Davis, whatever you do, when you commit yourself, it works. You're just waiting to see what mistake he makes, so what gap, which route you're going to go to. What mistake are you going to magnify, capitalise on?
I think that's a really neat way of putting it, actually.
I made it up. It sounds brilliant.
No, but I think it is, because it is, and you do get that with really, really, really good fighters, like you say. They're not Usyk, say. When the fights against Joshua, particularly the rematch, everyone's talking about what's Joshua going to do, and then someone said to Usyk, "So what are you going to do?" And he's just so, well, I'll figure that out on the night. What I will do. I know what I can do. Yeah. I know what I'm capable of. I'll wait and see what he does. And that's what it is, isn't
So
it? And
which-
that's
Yeah, I know what I can do.
like-
Which way I'm going to do it depends on what I look at you when I see what you do.
For
yeah,
me,
I'll decide how I'm going to beat you when I see what you do.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas Garcia goes, this is what I do.
Yeah,
I just got to find out. I just got to put it on you and do. I do this to you, and I'm just going to try and do it to you. That's what we all most. That's what I used to do. That's
and
what
it's
we try
always
to do.
worked for him
But
because he's
Garcia,
unbeaten.
but
And then
Davis
all of a
goes,
sudden,
I can do this, and this, and I'll decide what I'm going to do after I've seen what you can do.
yeah.
But the confidence to do that in a fight like
It's
this.
such a power move, isn't it? Because that was the way he spoke in the build-up to the fight. That was the way
Yeah,
he talked
yeah.
as well. And it is like, in terms of a psychological power move, it's just like, oh, okay.
yeah, my
So-
game plan basically depends on you do. Whatever you do,
Yeah.
I'm going to have an answer for it. What was surprising to me is not that, because I felt like it would be quite standoffish for the first few rounds, 2 or 3 rounds. But Garcia seemed to go from sort of easing himself into the fight to fifth gear pretty much in the second round, where he got very gung-ho, made a lot of mistakes and gave Davis that opportunity to land that big left hand, which we'll watch in a short while.
Inexperienced, that, do you think?
That's what I think, because I mean, one of the things that we don't sort of seem to, or say we, like people don't sort of give Gervonta Davis credit for, the fact that he's been a world champion for a long time. He's been a high commodity, commercial juggernaut for a long time. He's a pay-per-view fighter. He's handled, okay, this was still the biggest fight that he's had, but he's had instances where he's had to deal with the occasion, and he's been through it, and he's seen these different styles.
at a young age as well. By
Exactly,
the way.
and
he beat Pedraza when he was a kid.
Look, 22.
yeah.
So he's been around for world champion for 6 years. People talk about the regular titles and whatever. He won a legit world title at 22 against a very good fighter in Jose Pedraza. And I feel like the inexperience is what we saw from Garcia. And then after the second round, again, which we'll have a look at courtesy of our friends at Showtime, we saw him tentative because it was a case of, oh God, okay, this is actually really what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, all of the things that people had kind of given Garcia the chance of springing the upset for, which was fearlessness, going there, letting his hands go, not being overawed by the situation. All of a sudden, he's in there and he realizes, oh no, like I can't do that. And then he's not committing to his shots.
No, exactly.
I felt like Davis was winning the rounds. It's kind of like Willie Pep. He's winning the rounds without really throwing a punch. He's just feinting him and twitching him up and
But
looking for the
I quite liked the fact that Garcia did what he did in the second round. I know it didn't work, but
But what's he going to do?
But what else is he going to do? Yeah, it just didn't work, and it's always worked, and that's a mad place to be. But at some point, you know that it won't work, but it's not something you really think about. You go into the fight convinced it's going to work. You've always won, and I feel like when we spoke about it last week, I think we did kind of give Davis the credit that he deserved for the experience that he had. One thing I think we probably did do, and loads of other people did it as well, was that we, as it turned out, were quite generous in our assessment of Garcia and put him at a certain level, which wasn't actually based on what he'd done yet, but based on what we felt his potential was. And as it turned out, against Davis at least, he wasn't where we maybe thought he was, and where he probably also thought he was, and that's just the brutality of the sport, really.
But I think Davis,
you get shown your level, and it's
Garcia
harsh.
does have that power, though. He does. Like, he hits people on one foot and knocks them out. He has power, and he has speed, and all those things are hard to counter against. They really are, and they're assets. He hasn't got the all-round game of a Davis. There's nothing wrong with that. But I did say last week that Davis would want him to throw wildly. If he throws wildly, he's in trouble. And I think that quite happened. But because what's Garcia, once he hits you with something, once he has a bit of success, he goes, poof, he lights up. Because in the past, once he's been able to hit you with any shot, he knows, and he can let his punches go. He's got you in his range. He knows because he has power, and everyone he's hit, he's hurt. So even if you haven't stopped, he's hurt them. So he just knows straight away, bam, I can go for it now. And I think against someone like Davis, if you can hit him once, you gotta gamble. But with that, there's a risk with that with someone like Davis who can get, like I said, you come in low. I got it perfectly actually, but no, you real pure luck. But you come in low, you won't panic, and he don't worry. There's a few fighters like that. Josh Taylor's one of them. When all punches are firing at you, and you should be at your most wariest, scared if even should be. You don't want to be there. That's where they need to be. They're better there. He sits out here, but when he commits himself to his work, he's not worried about what you do. But he don't throw blindly like some others, like Garcia does. When Garcia throws, he throws. He's done it. He's like I said about Joshua. Once you throw a big shot, there's a second there where you can't bring it back. Whatever comes your way, if you can't get out the way, it's going to hit you. But Davis is not like that. Every shot's thoughtful. So he won't throw a shot until you've made the mistake to give him the gap, so you can't fire back.
There are some fighters who, we've got one there.
Thanks.
There are some fighters who,
The other super featherweight of the generation, Barry.
the
don't worry
really
about
top,
avoided me like the plague.
the really top level of fighter who you can catch them with a single shot, but they very rarely get hit with a combination.
it. Well,
And
we're
that's-
going to have a
Davis
look at.
looks to be that guy, doesn't
We're going to
he?
have a look at the knockdown now. Before we do it, we kind of mentioned it previously. It reminded me a bit of the Santa Cruz fight, where Santa Cruz threw the first right hand and it landed, and you sort of see Davis landed. The second one he parried, and the third one he just made him pay. And what you've said there, Barry, about Davis having that kind of presence of mind of being calm in the eye of the storm, you can actually see him, and we're going to run this now. So you can see him on the third left hook that whizzes over his head, or just before it lands, where he's got his hand out, he's just finding where Garcia is, and this is all in the split second, and he's got a little smile on his face, and he just goes like that, and then the left hook comes, and he ducks and then wings it over. So let's just have a look at it now. Here it comes. So left hand over the top, left hand over the top, touch with the right hand, under, bang. And there he goes.
It's just so precise, isn't it? It's,
Show it again. Look with his foot as well.
So we're going to
Look
roll
where
it back.
where he puts his feet.
Just
Because
watch.
as this is happening, see how he's moving to his right as well? Moving
and
to
he
my right,
gets his
moving
feet
to my right.
underneath him, just there. So we've slowed it down. Garcia's got his foot on the outside, but Davis is set here, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's got the
Right
hand
hand
out,
measuring.
He's got
measuring.
He goes foot in the top, but Davis already moved around that target there. So Garcia is taking the foot and moving.
and we've
But the
just-
foot's on the outside when he throws the punch.
yeah, he gets
See?
it just outside. The left hook comes, he gets the right foot outside of Garcia's left foot. And then here, he's just in all kinds of trouble here. Because he's over the front foot, the left hook's missed, and he's wide open for that. Beautiful shot.
But look at him. You've got to give Garcia
Straight
his
up
credit.
at two again,
Straight
just like the
up,
Campbell
straight up.
fight.
He
Straight up.
takes a good shot.
But I feel like that was... And we've just...
That's his panic moment.
Yeah, and I feel like we mentioned it beforehand, and I feel like there was a real noticeable difference in Ryan Garcia after that, because I felt like after that he really doubted everything. He put the left hook away until the seventh round when he brought it back out and then got stopped, and it was kind of what we were talking about earlier.
his best round was probably the sixth, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He trod that fine line between trying to keep it tight and not give anything away, but push it quite well in that round. And I gave him that round.
Yeah.
I mean, as I gave it to him, I was wondering whether I gave it to him because it was better than the previous three.
No,
or-
I think you were right, mate.
But I gave it to him, and that maybe encouraged him a bit. And then in the seventh, he thought, right, okay, I'm going to have another go now. And then he gets put down again, and he thinks, oh no, this is, I can't do anything with this
He's
guy.
like a Pied Piper, really, isn't he? A little bit, Davis. He encourages you, gives you a bit of encouragement.
Yeah.
Come here.
Yeah.
Bam, you're done.
Yeah, and it's that.
But what I say about that left hook, like he committed with that left hook because Davis puts himself in the position, moves to the right. He doesn't get his foot on the outside. Garcia puts so much into that left hook because he thinks he's got him, because he's landed with a couple of shots, thinks he's got him, that he's thrown his whole body in that left hook, and his left foot's come over the right foot. That's what's happened there. But Davis has put himself there on the outside, so he's almost, so if he stays where he is, Garcia's already there, and he can just swing his body right into the shot. So if he overextends, he doesn't go too far over. But because Davis has gone this angle, Garcia then put everything at the shot, but he's closer to the hook, and he makes him miss, and then he goes right over and his front foot comes over the top, and because he committed that shot and got hurt, and that's his shot. That's, no one sees that left hook. No one sees it coming, and you've seen it. You've set him up. You've invited him to throw it. You've set him up to throw it, knowing he's going to make him miss. Like,
Yeah, it's the presence of mind in that moment and being
well,
able to stay calm.
you'll never
in
throw
there.
that shot again. I wouldn't throw it. I'm going to throw this again.
And I feel like this was kind of the big turning point. Obviously, a knockdown in the second round is always going to be a big turning point in the fight. But
Well,
I feel
not
like what we
always.
saw.
It depends on how you hurt. But I mean, the fact is, when you're thinking you've got the guy where you want him, that's the worst part. The mental that I got him when I want him, and I commit to everything I got, and it doesn't only work. You get put on your ass.
Yeah, again, it's
Then
sort of what we were
it
talking
becomes
about
a
earlier, where
pivotal.
Garcia's committing to the shot, he commits to it, gets hit with a big shot, and then thinks, "Oh God, I can't commit." And I feel like we saw that in the rounds that followed. I felt like Garcia was back with the jab. He wasn't, not necessarily that he has to step in, but everything was tentative, and Davis could see that. And I feel like what was most impressive with me, like I've always been sometimes to the ridicule of others. I've always been a massive Gervonta Davis fan, and always, even when he's boxed guys who have not always been the caliber of opposition that we've want to see him face, which is obviously a story for another time. how he's calm and how he doesn't rush his work. You never see him kind of expending unnecessary energy. And I felt like in rounds 3,
criticism in the
4,
past.
yeah, but in this fight we saw why, where he's got that presence of mind. Rounds 3, 4, 5, he's just feinting Garcia, and Garcia's biting on every feint. And as you'll attest to, Barry, when you've got somebody in front of you you know that they can hurt you, and they're twitching you up and making you faint, you're burning that nervous energy and burning the nervous energy. And Davis just waited, as he does in some of his fights, where he just waited for the right opportunity and thought, okay, there it is.
Yeah, it's always really impressive when you see someone, and it's generally the sign of a really good fighter, who seems to be making their opponent fighting fast forward when they're almost fighting in slow motion. You see it, don't you? Because you can induce panic in different ways. Like if you can do it with power, obviously you feel someone's power and someone panics a bit, and all of a sudden they're going at 100 miles an hour, and the other guy's just kind of walking across the ring like he's strolling across to order a drink at the bar. But then the kind of panic that Garcia had was a little bit different, because it was the oh shit, I can't make a mistake sort of panic.
And he doesn't have the same belief in his shots anymore either.
Yeah.
Like I felt like once he'd got up, he'd lost that kind of willingness to commit to the shot.
It's what not all, certain great fighters. Naz did it. Floyd did it. No. Some fight, they take away your strengths straight away. So once that little thing there with the knockdown, with all the setup before it, that took away the left hook. That shot there, that movement before it as well, took away the left hook straight away. So that's his best shot. That's his only shot. That's the only chance he got of winning a fight, is by landing that left hook, either once and he puts him to sleep, or continuously enough to make Davis in trouble or hurt or slow him down, whatever. Once you take that away, which is just take that away. It's not an easy thing to do, by the way. Once you take that away, I knew from the second round he wasn't going to win that fight unless Davis makes a massive balls of a mistake. And if you're
Garcia, like mentally, that destroys you, doesn't it? Because if you're inexperienced at that level, which he is, and undefeated, and that one thing has always worked, and all of a sudden this guy just kind of takes you off at the shoulder almost, you just, what am I going to do now?
You go into a fight thinking whatever, like, I go back to myself, because I love talking about myself. When always the fight I got beaten though. But like I had fast hands and fast feet, so I'm thinking, I boxed that Freitas who could punch, I'm thinking, but he won't be fast to me, I cannot box him, am I fast? And he was as fast as I was. Wasn't faster, but he was as fast as me, but with power. So once I think I'm not as fast as him, straight from the offset, after I knocked him down in 20 seconds, but from there on in, it was hell. And I'm thinking, shit. And you still trying to find out the win, because what are you going to do? Just quit? And you just think, Garcia? But no, but I mean, you try and find a way to win, but you think, once you take away what you think, he took away my strength by being better than me at what I do. But fighters like Naz would make you miss at the beginning. He did it with Steve Robinson. He just made him miss so easy. They clams you up then, makes you tense. And Floyd would do it. He would, like, you're not doing anything, Floyd, you're just doing this with the shoulder roll. But he's just showing you all your arsenal is crap.
Yeah.
What you do, actually, and it's not, what you do is really good and effective, and it's world level, but what you do against me, it's shit. He did it with Canelo. He made a good, even though that wasn't the same Canelo we've seen, in the last few years, but that Canelo was still a good boxer, that Canelo. And he just got in the ring with him, made him miss with everything, and just went, I'll make you shit, really. And you see that, remember the panic and Canelo's face? Young 21.
That's it, mentally, they're just destroying you, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that again,
they're taking your soul, because with Garcia,
and they insert an extra thought process into your brain. Now, I'm overcomplicating this bollocks now, but they do.
No, I don't think you are.
They make you think twice.
Yeah.
When things got to be reactive, muscle memory, all that rubbish. But things, you don't get a long time. Sometimes you see a gap in boxing. You don't get a long time to think and do it. You got to think and do it almost the same time.
Yeah, it's just that. It's doubt, isn't
they
it?
Give an extra thought tenses you up. Once it slows you down,
it's doubt. It's doubt. In boxing, more than any other sport, you've got to be completely.
And he did that in the second.
You can't hesitate. You've got to have the courage of your convictions. And as soon as you start to doubt yourself, particularly if you're young and undefeated, you are fucked.
And particularly in this instance, you mentioned about Canelo against Mayweather as well. It's because Mayweather, again, seasoned, been there, done it, been boxing at the highest of high levels, big pay-per-view attractions. Okay, not the same. Gervonta Davis is not the same commercial attraction as Floyd was then, of course, far from it. But he's been there. And again, like Canelo, you've got Ryan Garcia, who, again, not as established as Canelo was, even at that point. He's never really been there, and he's in a position where he's thinking, okay, well, I've always got that left hook, his get out of jail free card, and that gets taken away from you in spectacular fashion in the second round.
There you go.
And I've just felt like...
But Garcia had more of a chance in this fight than Canelo had in that fight. I felt, at that time.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
He called Canelo at the right time. He knew it, and he knew it. He cleverly said, I'll get him now. And he looked like a massive ballsy risk. He's boxing a bigger guy, but he knew I'll get him now because this kid's going to get better. He beats, listen, the best Mayweather beats the best Canelo always and forever. No, if you could put the best in the same at the best time and close to the weights.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many intangibles with it, with the weights and anything. But anyway, just going back.
There's not.
Well, with the best Mayweather is what, 130?
The best Mayweather beats the best Canelo. I don't care what weight they are. Fuck
yeah.
You, go on.
Anyway, but my argument to that is the best Canelo was 168 and the best Floyd is 130.
Well, arguably, the most exciting Mayweather was 130, and also the best was. He beat the better guys as a welterweight. His better resume is at the welterweight.
Yeah, best to watch was
back to this fight. Back to this fight. I felt like what we saw with Davis and Garcia was an elite, established champion and somebody who's boxed at the highest level against. Okay, it's all wonderful to say it after the event. An elite prospect, really, and somebody who, okay, he beat Luke Campbell a couple of years ago. He's boxed twice since then against Tago and Javier Fortuna. But there again, they're not those same events. They're not, big world title fights or defenses.
When you look at the build-up to this fight, giving Garcia a good chance in the fight was based upon being willing to accept that he was capable of making a big step up in this fight, that he had the potential to do that. You had to make that leap of faith, and most people did, because most people were thinking that this could be a really good fight. In the end, he couldn't do it, and that the golfing experience and ability at the moment is significant. But that's sometimes you see fighters having to take that leap and take that step, and they can do it. Davis against Pedraza, they were super confident in him, and for good reason. But when you looked at it, I remember at the time thinking to myself, I wonder if they're right about this guy or not. I guess we'll find out. And that's why I don't really feel like being too harsh on Garcia. I don't totally give him a pass for the way that the fight ended, because I think a requirement as a professional fighter, if you want to be at the very top. I'm not someone who thinks that you should just get up and walk into a hail of gunfire, under any circumstances. I'm not, but it is a requirement to get back to your feet if you can. And I thought he could have done, and walk back into the fire. And if it turns out it's futile and dangerous, then it's your corner's job to pull you out. So I felt like he should have done that. But at the same time, I think I understand what happened in there, which was it's that terrible dawning realisation that actually you are not up to this particular job, not yet.
Davis said after the fight, didn't he? I was looking at him.
He was so crushed,
and I was basically saying to him to get up so he saw more. But anyway, that's enough from us. Here is what Gervonta Davis had to say after the fight in the post-fight press conference.
That when you saw how aggressive he was becoming, was that your cue to turn it on? You knew that left hand was going to do damage?
Nah, he was just, I don't know, I just felt like I was like a step, a little, like a level above him, you know what I mean? So everything he was doing in the ring, I was already aware of, you know what I mean? Everything, like, I was already aware of like a couple steps before he did it. So I was mostly calm and just let him make his mistakes, and I just, I counted off his mistakes.
So that was Gervonta Davis. As in his own words, Andy, a couple of steps ahead. He felt like he was a level above Ryan Garcia this past weekend. And I think everything that we've said, and of course everything that we saw this past weekend, just kind of backs that point up, I think.
Yeah, it does. It does. When we kind of pick the bones out of this fight, and it's always really interesting to do, and particularly when it's a fight that's attracted so much attention. But what happened on Saturday night was actually really simple. One guy was a lot better than the other. End of story. That was it. And it is, the podcast would be quite short if we just left things there.
Yeah, that's gonna say.
But ultimately, that's what happened. That's what we had, and we didn't necessarily think that we would get that. You wouldn't have ruled it out, but there were plenty of other possibilities. But ultimately, that is what happened. And Davis was, like you said earlier, right at the start, that he looks closely at everything that the opponent's doing and spots the mistakes. You just feel like he sees everything very, very, very clearly in minute detail, and kind of in slow motion almost. It's going to it's going to take some doing to beat him. It's really going to take some doing to beat him. I think if somebody does manage to beat him, funnily enough, it might actually be a pretty terrible fight, where you just have a load of really close rounds, and whoever manages to beat him gets enough of them with the judges.
Barry, who is that person?
I can't think of anyone right now. It depends what weight he's at. That's the thing. I think weight beat him in the end. He can't keep. No, he's 5'5". He's shorter than me.
It's going to be you. Dust off the gloves.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's going to be that. He's going to go too far. Where can he go? I think lightweights probably should be the limit, really.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he has much more plans to go any higher than 135 again. I mean,
well, let's hope so, because I think at that weight, then that's where all the real big fights for him are. I think, to be honest, and I don't see right now. You make him top of the tree, don't you? You have to. I think. I think Ryan Garcia is a good fighter, and I think he comes again. He has that power disguises a lot of frailties. I understand that, but it's real, so it almost doesn't matter. There's a lot of punchers who couldn't box as great as their opponents, but then they hit you. If he could have hit Davis with that left hook, Davis was in trouble, guarantee. Whether he knocks him out or not, when Davis finds a way, I'm sure. We all pick Davis to win, but if he were to land that left hook clean on Davis, Davis feels it. And I mean, feels enough to think I can't take another one, or gets knocked out. I think that's always the case with Ryan Garcia. He's always going to have that, so he's always going to be fighting at the highest level, and he will win a world title again. I'm pretty sure. And I don't think you can question his heart so much. No, again, I think he could have got up. So there's a question there, but when he gets hurt, he gets up. That's a different pain. He never had that. I think that when he gets hit on the chin, he got a great chin. Then that's maybe the great chin. You don't really see it. You don't really get hurt. It's different. Sometimes it's different. You get hit on the chin and go over and go, I didn't even see that. Didn't feel that. I had my first knockdown. I got hit in the chin and got on the floor. I didn't know I got hit. I didn't feel it. Didn't hurt. So I got back up. Then I got hurt. but what I mean is, it's not always. They don't always think. They don't always rock your senses and go, I don't know where I am. It's not. Headshots not always like that. But body shots have a lasting effect. And when he tried to get up, he felt it, and I don't know. So I think he comes again. But Davis is...
Has it got to be the winner of Devin Haney versus Lomachenko? Has that got to be the one for him? Because he's got kind of the commercial appeal, and I think it's fair to say one of the big stars, but doesn't have that hardware. If he could beat the winner of Haney Lomachenko, I'm not sure that he cares about the hardware.
I think the winner Haney Lomachenko gets Stevenson. I think. Forget about Shakur Stevenson, is he doing it? So maybe that's the super fight of all fights in the end. Davis versus Stevenson. I think Stevenson beats everyone.
But as a box office guy, Davis is the biggest.
He's by far the biggest attraction out of anybody at 135, by far. So you would think that even Lomachenko, Haney, Stevenson, they're all going to want the big payday. Of course, they're going to want the belts as well, and
they'll want him. I think they'll give Stevenson another year or so in this division now, just to build and just to cement himself. He's hard to beat. He's so clever.
Well, we had this conversation, didn't we?
That might be the shitty fight, actually.
I think it will be a bad fight. I think it'll be a bad fight.
That might be the shitty fight where you might
if you manage to beat Davis, I think it'll be a bad fight. It'll be laser discipline, laser focus. We'll be hoping it will catch fire. There'll be little flare-ups where we feel like it might, and it looks like it might, but it won't. And that's what it'll be, I think.
And that's what we didn't see from Ryan Garcia. We saw him by his own admission. We're going to hear from him shortly from the post-fight press conference, where he said that he got bored, couldn't keep the concentration, whereas somebody like Shakur Stevenson, not bothered. Devin Haney, not bothered. I could be disciplined for 12 rounds, 15 rounds, whatever you want, and as long as I win the fight.
He got bored.
He said that he
after
got bored.
The first round.
That's what he said.
He's a fucking idiot, then, isn't he? Yeah. Clip that up. That'll go out.
Yeah, nice.
But I think you're bored after one round. That's just absolutely. Don't believe that. I just don't believe it. That's a lie.
He said that he said.
It's a blatant lie. Okay, then you could have got up there, mate. If we're all lying, no, you could have got up. You quit. No, it's like.
I think he's searching for reasons.
Yeah, and of course he will do, won't he?
He's crushingly disappointed.
He never got bored.
He said that he got bored.
He's never had to handle defeat before, let alone this kind of scale.
Yeah.
It's like,
and also,
I don't really pay attention to anything anyone says in in the aftermath of a
Yeah,
fight.
I
You
got
might
bored
get a
in-
bit more considered of you a few weeks later.
I got
but
bored
I'd
in my
imagine
fucking defeat. I got bored. You kept hitting me down.
But
I got
you
boring.
could, I don't buy into it, but you can see from his perspective how he's trying to justify.
He's
Oh well, you know,
trying
it's
to-
not me.
yeah.
I go out there and basically tried to let my hands go, and then he got dropped.
Because just got beat by a fucking great fighter. That's all.
Yeah.
he said that in the ring, though. But interestingly, in these situations, what they say in the ring
We've
is
said
usually
so
the
many times.
truth.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, they come up with other stuff. And what will happen over the next few weeks is he'll say, "Wow, 136 was a bit of a stretch. I know that now. I'm really a super
That's
lightweight. The
more truth.
rehydration.
That's more truth.
Yeah,
that's more
yeah.
truthful than saying I
I
got
know,
bored.
but it takes time. Like in the ring, generally they tell the truth, and then by the time they get to the press conference, they think,
Yeah.
See, Harold Graham can say I got bored against Julian Jackson before he knocked me out. I can understand that because he's boxing rings around him. Though that never happened because he never said that because he's a real fighter. But like, you can get bored if you're dominating a fight and you get chipped and you get chinned because sometimes, like everyone gets a prospect gets beat by a journeyman, then he gets knocked out because he's bored because he forgets sometimes that people are throwing back. You know what I mean?
He has everything his own way.
But that wasn't that fight. This was a fight that you can't get bored because you know what's going on. He just got caught. He seen the opportunity and he went for it. He like he did. He throws blindly. I said this the other week. He seen the opportunity. He thought he had Davis, but he could let his hands go, touch him with a shot, hit him with a shot, and went, I'm going for it. But Davis knew he was going to do that. Just set him up, moved around the target like that, made him make the mistake, and just threw a great shot and hurt him. And then from there on in, there was a panic not to make that mistake again. And with that panic, you don't throw. With that not throwing, the other guy picks up the points. And then you do have a little bit more success. You think, I've got to make it, like in the 6th round, I've got to do something here now because I'm getting outboxed here and I'm not doing anything. And then you try and make it, and then you have a bit of success. Then you go, well, I'm success now because you have that power to knock someone out, haven't you? Oh, I'm going to go for it again. And he did. And Davis is going, go on, go for it. Bam.
Yeah, and
That's all that happened,
That's
isn't it?
exactly
Yeah.
what happened. Exactly what happened.
Let's hear from Ryan Garcia now. This is what he had to say in the post-fight press conference.
Early on, it looked like you were jabbing, work from the outside, and like you said, you were trying to push, maybe get aggressive on the inside. What was that like, knowing that it looked like Tank was trying to catch you with something, and why did you feel like necessary to take that risk in a fight of this magnitude?
I just wanted to make this fight, a little bit more exciting. Again, that's my inexperience, I guess, at the biggest stage. I definitely messed up. I should have just made it boring, made a miss, and just kept on the outside. But at one point, I just decided to say, let's start throwing them, and obviously that didn't work in my favor.
Final question for Ryan.
Andre Johnson with Zinger News. Ryan, congratulations, because this was a big night for boxing. This was a tremendous promotion, and you had a lot to do with that. I thought early on in the fight, like round 1 and into round 2, you were very aggressive, and the crowd was reacting to it. But when you got caught with the counter and you got knocked down, things kind of changed. What happened? Talk to us about it, and tell me about Tank's power. What did you say about it?
I just, it changed because I realized I was being stupid, I just started firing shots. I could have just kept playing the same game that I was playing. Jab, back up, wait for him to throw, back up. But I felt like I caught him with a hard shot when I pressed him with an overhand and hook, which I did hurt him. And then I just started pressing him. And again, that's my inexperience. I ran into one. It didn't hurt as much as Luke Campbell, but again, a knockdown's a knockdown. It counts. Got right back up, and we went back to the same game. Him moving and me pressuring. But it's all good. I'll learn from it.
So that was Ryan Garcia. We're going to come to Andy first while Barry calms down. Felt like he was. We kind of watched there. He was bored. He wanted to go and let his hands go. He also says that he feels that maybe kind of didn't come out and directly blame the weight, but said that he feels like he's going to move to 140 in the future. But we've spoke about it on this podcast many times about when fighters kind of have that initial loss, and it's, as you've just mentioned before the cut to it, where it's in the ring it's I lost to the better man and no excuses, and then it's this didn't go wrong, and then before 3 months later, before you know it, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories and what have you. I felt that, and we've kind of alluded to it throughout this, that him saying that he was bored is one way of interpreting it. I just felt like his experience of handling a dangerous opponent on a massive platform was kind of where I felt like it went wrong for him. We just couldn't stay switched on against the guy who you really have to be switched on against at all times.
Yeah, I agree. And never mind all that stuff he said there, and never really mind anything that he says about it, because as he gets older himself, he will realise, if he doesn't already, exactly what happened on Saturday. He hasn't got the experience to handle it at the moment. He didn't have the experience to handle Davis in the ring, and he doesn't really have the experience of losing and your world feeling like it's coming crashing down round your ears to be able to handle the defeat as well as he will be able to handle it when it happens again, because it almost certainly will, further down the line. And that's fine. Like, I've got no problem with that. It's totally understandable. He will come out and say some things which are total bollocks. That will happen. It's unavoidable, really.
He has nothing to be ashamed of.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. He's done against a good fight. He had to go.
Yeah.
He didn't go gung-ho, but he'd be silly to do that. He had to go the best he could. It didn't work, and that's it.
And as you said earlier on, it's not like it's not like you look at Garcia and can say, like people like to do this, dismiss him as a hype job. He is a good fighter. He will be a really good fighter. Just at the moment, the gulf between him and Davis, who is top-end world level, not just world level, top-end world level, was too big.
Barry, going to come to you. Obviously, aside from moving up to 140, which you just alluded to there, and of course he's boxed up there in his last couple of fights. For me, if you'll agree, the activity is what we need to see now from Ryan Garcia, getting the experience. He's boxed twice since that, now 3 times, of course, since that Luke Campbell win at the start of 2021. Yeah. Is that just as important, if not more so, than him moving up and finding the right weight, or whatever his kind of view on the fight is?
There is a worry there, how he deals with this mentally, because he's had problems before. And
that's a good point.
Yeah, and how he deals with it, because dealing with defeat's hard. And when you're a big fight, I don't know this, but when you're a real big name, it must be harder because it's magnified, because everyone knows you've just been beat.
Yeah.
And also you begin accusations of quitting and all that sort of stuff, which you gotta have to put through, which I never had that, so that's going to be difficult for him. So but take that to one side. If he deals with that, fine. Then get back in there, because people should be telling him, listen, you had to go, and you like members of boxers were liars. I always say this. So you try and take the positive with everything. I know that I didn't. If I done that right, when I threw a left hook, and if I didn't overcommit, that would have hit him, and that would have been a different fight. And you try and smooth it towards a more understandable feeling that you just didn't do as good as you could have done, but just a bit of bad luck, or didn't quite get it right. But he did all right. He had to go. He never really won anything. But he had to go at times. So you just in against a good fight. That's what you got to realize. You got to admit. And it's hard for people to do that. That I was in against a guy on that night, which is way too good for me. But he's still a good fighter. He can still win a world title. At 140, he can. If he hits you, I think that power will carry with him. And because the weight might have been an issue, but it can be a fact. You can't blame it because you agreed to it. But it might have been an issue. But that could be for anyone who struggles to make weight. But and the rehydration course was probably a worse thing for him as well. But he goes up to super lightweight now, and he will be competitive, and he will hurt people, and he will knock people out, and he might very well win a world title. It's a competitive weight, so he's still a star potential in him, and I think he is a good fighter. He does loads of things wrong, but he has speed and power, so he can get away with it, and also he takes a good shot, ironically.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So I don't see. There's good things to work with there. He still, he just stylistically that one a good matchup for him. Davis is a bit of a special athlete, and I think because he sees things, and once a fighter has that anticipation factor that great fighters have, whether he's a great fighter, time will tell with Davis. But right now he looks like he could be. When they have that anticipation thing, that they can just anticipate what you're going to do, almost before you do. It's like they're cheating. It is like they're cheating. It is. You think, oh, do they see that? I know what it's like to be lost in a fight better than anyone. And you're thinking all the time, why not working? How does he know I'm doing this? Why can't I stop him from hitting me? I know what he's going to do, and I still can't stop him. That's the worst thing. I know what he's going to do. Why can't I stop him? And you just look and you think, why? And you watch it back and you go, why didn't I move? Why didn't I block that? Why did I? I've blocked him out. Why? because in the night he's done something, little step here, little little
he
movement
knows
to
where
the
you're
side.
trying to go.
Yeah, he's already hurt you,
Yeah.
so you think you're thinking like that, but actually you're thinking. All that,
That's a real bleak place to be, isn't it? If you're in there and you're feeling like they've got this kind of like Jedi mind trick over you, where you are doing what they want you to, and you can't do anything about what they're doing, and there's no clarity, and you're just the doubt, and all of a sudden you've got no chance of it.
I know what Davis showed. I know dictating the pace is very important. People think dictating the pace, and it usually is the guy moving forward. He showed that dictating the pace doesn't mean you have to be the one barging forward. He dictated the pace by moving around, changing direction, the threat of what he would do, all that, and it was at his pace. The exchanges only really happened when he wanted them to. He engaged everything.
They get you under their spell, don't they? Great fighters. That's what they do.
So yeah, I don't think Garcia got nothing to be ashamed of. No, he stayed on his knee, fair enough, but he resigned himself. He gets up, he gets beat. Get knocked
and
out.
he knew it.
And I would have got up, I think. If I could have got up, I would have got up. I think I proved that. But again, your pain's your own pain. We don't know what you were feeling at the time. It's a lot of times, up here, not here.
That's exactly what I think it was. It was just all the hope had left him.
Yeah.
All the hope had left him.
He looks calm. Inside, he's panicking. Shit. Because he's never been there before. He hasn't been in up. He's been dropped. So I understand that, but that's different, that is. Because there's no answer to it. He had no answer to what Davis was doing. And he felt Davis had an answer to him.
It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, after the Campbell fight, he spoke to Luke Campbell and his team and kind of mentioned that he wants to have all of his big fights. And that was the time where he was calling out Manny Pacquiao, and then he wanted to fight this guy and that guy. I don't really see Garcia kind of, what I feel like he may be in his best interest for a boxing point of view is to, maybe certainly drop down a level from Gervonta Davis, go up to 140, get some activity, fight 3 times in a year. But I think that he has other interests, of course. Like, he's a massive social media star. He's got all of these commercial endorsements. He'd said after that fight that he wanted to be kind of done when he was 27, 28 and have his big fights and kind of not get them out of the way, but I don't think he really is going to be very interested in dropping down the levels. I think he's going to want the big fights, and I think he's going to want to get straight back in there.
Well, he's a star, so he's going to have to have the big fights.
But if that's the case, I feel like when he gets to a certain level against guys who are more well-rounded than him, this is not saying he can't beat guys, but he's always going to have that.
The same problems.
Yeah, he makes too many mistakes to beat the top guys, I think.
Say he boxes Ramirez. Right now you go Ramirez would just batter him at some point. But Ramirez can be hit. So I think if he hits you with a left hook, he can hurt you.
Even like somebody like Ramirez, I think like Ramirez is...
I'm not saying he can beat Ramirez, but I'm just saying, I think what I mean, he has a chance.
But that level above Ramirez, Prograis, Taylor...
Are they above Ramirez?
I think so, yeah. I mean,
just maybe because they're more athletic. But even you can't hit Prograis?
No, sure. But again, but Prograis, I think, is a well-rounded fighter who can punch as well.
You make him all favourite right now. But I mean, if he carries that power up, and that speed up as well, by the way, he's a danger for all of them. Teofimo Lopez as well, and Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor showed he struggled with a guy with good time and a good speed in Jack Cattrall, who hurt him more than I've ever seen him hurt before, ironically. But I'm not saying I think they might beat him all of them beat him, but he can be competitive, and on his day, if he can hit you, he can knock you out. I tell you that much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I genuinely believe that power he got is real, because he does it with don't bend his legs. Imagine if he starts bending his legs. No, you know what I mean? He'd be the Julian Jackson of our day.
I don't really tend to listen to fighters' kind of predictions about what they're going to do when they're undefeated, because you can chart out the most amazing path. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to retire at 27 and become a film star. Great. But then they lose and they realise that life's not that simple and boxing careers aren't that simple. And then how in it are they? I think Garcia is in this.
That's all he's been as a boxer.
That's all he's ever been. And he may be thinking to himself, all right, plans are fine, but ultimately it's just something written on a piece of paper or in your head. I'm going to double down and achieve what I want to achieve in this sport. And how I get there, I'm not really sure yet. But I'm going to fucking get there. If
he retires now, he comes back later on in his life when it's worse for him, because he'll miss it. He'll miss it as much as you think you won't miss it, because you've earned lots of money and you've got a life outside of it that makes you famous and all that crap. This is a different feeling. Like, you might be famous there, but no one's cheering your name. They're typing your name or whatever. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But they're not cheering. That alone Why didn't Rick Hatton come back? He all that money. He had a great career. Even if you finish on a win, that call, that people calling your name, that's the drug.
Yeah,
that's the drug for any sports people. The roll of the crowd, whether it's 500 or 50,000, whatever it is, that call of the crowd, and all that's you miss that, and he'll come back. So you're better off just stay in it and then retire, and you're done. And he can be done when he's 30. Rather than just when he's set, rather than retire, how old is he now?
24.
Rather than retire now and come back at 29 when he had too much of a gap out and the landscape's changed and he might not be as fast as he used to be. I would say that would be my advice to you, Ryan. Like from a guy who retired at 25.
There we go. Okay, that's all we have time for today on our review show. Andy, we're going to have a little catch up and talk about Canelo versus Ryder. But thank you to everybody, and thank you, of course, to our esteemed panel of guests, Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clark, for another episode of the ID Boxing Podcast. From me, your host, Rob Tebbert, thanks very much for stopping by, and we'll catch up with you next time.